Hello and welcome to this fourth video in the training series for Back to Church Sunday. I'm Jason Day, the Executive Director of the National Back to Church Sunday Movement, and in this video we're going to be focusing on actually celebrating Back to Church Sunday. Now, the big day has finally arrived. You've been praying, you've been inviting, you've been preparing. I want to share a handful of thoughts to really make your Back to Church Sunday celebration a meaningful time for everyone. So the first thing you want to focus on is you want to create a welcoming atmosphere. Loving others and extending grace should always be the hallmarks of the church. But they are especially vital when helping guests feel welcome, right? So encourage regular attendees to greet guests and to watch for ways that they can assist. You want, again, your entire church to know that on this particular Sunday, there are gonna be new faces in your church. You want to encourage them to be kind, to reach out, to introduce themselves, and to make people really feel welcome. You also want to consider giving guests who come and visit and worship with you that day a welcome bag of some sort. Now, welcome bags can include a variety of things. Includes a gift book or insulated cup, a mug, a t-shirt, a gift card at a local cafe or coffee shop, information on your different ministries, or perhaps how you are giving back to your community. Those things are very, very important to help people better understand your church. It can be any assortment of items that you feel helps others feel cared for and feel welcomed, and encourages them to connect with your church more deeply and learn more about who you are and how you're ministering in your community. So consider a welcome bag for every guest who comes through your doors. Remember that what's next point I made in an earlier video? This is where that comes in. You want to invite guests to return for the following weeks of your sermon series. Or maybe invite them to attend a fun family event that you have planned, or a community barbecue, or whatever it is that you may have planned for their next step. But you want to make sure that that has been put into place, has been planned, and is ready to go with an invitation on the Sunday of Back to Church Sunday celebration. You want to be sure that you are connecting the people who have come through your doors, perhaps for the first time, with an opportunity to return. You might connect guests to a small group or a class or a course where they could come and ask spiritual questions with which they're wrestling. Now, whatever that is, it might sound simple, but issuing a clear invitation for them to return and become a part of your church family is an important way to make your guests feel valued, to feel welcome, and to understand that your church isn't just a place, but it's a community of people who gather together in relationship with God and with one another. This is a really important step, and it helps build relationships with your new guests. Now, what's fascinating is that new people will be more likely to return and to keep attending your church if they have the opportunity to build a friendship or relationship with one or two people. So be sure to invite them to whatever their next step is. Now, you might have an immediate next step following the worship gathering that morning. That next step might be for them to come back to a welcome center and to meet the pastor or ministry leaders and receive that welcome bag we just talked about. But you also want to make sure that you have some sort of event that you're inviting them to. That event might be the second sermon in the sermon series that you kick off on Back to Church Sunday. So you're inviting them to come back the next Sunday for the next sermon in that series. Or it might be an event in the community or event for the family. But make sure you have something that you're inviting them back to experience so that they'll be encouraged to return to your church. On that Sunday, you also might consider having refreshments. And lots of churches have coffee and those types of things before the worship gathering. I would encourage you to serve refreshments after your worship service as well. You want to have a clearly marked area with drinks, snacks, whatever that might be. Not only does this demonstrate that you value your attendees, that you value their comfort, that you want to welcome them, but it also encourages everyone to stay around for a bit after your worship gathering so that they can meet new people. This affords the people in your church who are already a part of your church the opportunity to come over and introduce themselves as well and get to know guests who have come to your church, perhaps for the first time. Now, you can take this a step further by recruiting people in advance, people who are already a part of your church, and asking them if they'd be willing to take guests out to lunch. Asking them if they would make that invitation after the worship gathering. They meet a couple or meet a family, and they might just ask them, hey, if you don't have lunch plans, we'd love to take you over and buy lunch for you. This is a great way to not only mobilize your people, get them maybe out of their comfort zone and encourage them to build relationships with new people in your church, but also give those new people who have come through your doors an opportunity to get to know a family or an individual better from your church. So those are all ways to really create a welcoming atmosphere on the Sunday that you celebrate back to church. The second thing that you really want to focus on for this particular Sunday is sharing the gospel. Now, I've mentioned this in other videos, but really you have an incredible opportunity to share the gospel with many new people on Back to Church Sunday. Those guests who are walking through your doors, or those guests who might be joining you online, they may have never heard the gospel shared before. So you want to be sure that the gospel is clearly presented during the worship celebration. You want to be intentional. You want to provide space for people to respond to how God is moving and at work in their life. You want to encourage the people in your different ministry areas. So in your children's ministry area, in your youth ministry areas, if there are other ministries going on that day, on your Back to Church Sunday celebration, encourage those leaders to be clearly presenting the gospel as well. This is what it's all about, introducing people to his church and introducing people directly to Jesus Christ. So share the gospel clearly. Another thing that you want to remember when it comes to celebrating Back to Church Sunday is that you need to follow up with every single guest. Now, this may take a little bit of a preparation beforehand, but you want to be sure that you connect with every guest that visits. To do so means that you're going to have to gather their contact information. So be sure that you have thought through ways that you can gather that information, and you have a plan for doing that. Whether it's a contact card that they fill out, a text message service that your church might be using, a QR code that goes to an online form, however it is that you're collecting contact information, make sure that's set up and ready to go. And on the day that you celebrate, make sure you direct everyone to take time to fill out that information. You can then reach out in whatever ways makes the most sense for you. If you have a mailing address, I really recommend that you do a handwritten note card to everyone who visits. So if you've got their mailing address, take the time for either your pastor or your staff pastors or key volunteers and ministry leaders to really write out a handwritten note. Handwritten notes are a scarcity these days. They can go a long way in showing that you truly care. And you might consider including a gift card or maybe a coupon that can be redeemed at your church the next Sunday for a free t-shirt or a journal or a cappuccino or whatever you might want to give them. This is a way that you send a note card, you show your appreciation, you thank them for visiting with you, for joining you in your worship, and then you have a little something in there to invite them and encourage them to come back the next week. So you want to be sure that as you're reaching out and following up with all of your guests, that you are inviting them again to join you in church the next week. And also you want to point them to whatever that next step is or that upcoming event that you have already planned. So take time to follow up with every single guest. This is hugely important. You don't want to put all this time, energy, and effort into preparing and celebrating Back to Church Sunday without having some sort of follow-up plan in mind. And you want to capture that information on that Sunday and follow up with every single person who visits your church. The next thing that you want to really think through is celebrate your church partners. You might remember in an earlier video, I talked about partnering with other churches in your community for Back to Church Sunday. You really don't want to let that connection fade. You want to reach out to those other church leaders that have joined in inviting your entire community back to church. You want to capture the excitement. You want to take advantage of the momentum that was generated and the relationships that were built between those churches. So come together with your partner churches and share stories about the ministry experience. Share stories about how God moved. Share photos of different things that your churches did and what you experienced. You want to pray together, and then you want to thank God and praise God for all that He accomplished through your collaborative efforts as you came together to reach your community. I encourage you to keep in touch with those pastors and ministry leaders and continue to build on the relationships that have been established. Many churches say that Back to Church Sunday was an incredible opportunity for them to join with other churches and build a relationship where all the churches continue to work together throughout the year to reach their community together. It's a beautiful thing, something I think God is really pleased with when we come together with other churches for the mission. So Back to Church Sunday is not just a one-time event. It's not just a special Sunday. There's a lot of things that lead up to it, a lot of things that happen on that day, and a lot of things that come out of it. It is the beginning of a transformational journey for many who walk through the doors of your church or who might join you online. You want to use this to propel your church forward. You want to use this to help your people live on mission and continue to reach your community and make disciples.